In a small, quiet village in 18th century Ireland, a young boy named George Berkeley was growing up, curious about the world around him. Unlike other children, George wasn't content with just playing in the fields or learning his lessons. He wanted to understand the very nature of reality itself. This curiosity would eventually lead him to become one of the most influential philosophers of his time, known for his radical idea, to be is to be perceived. George Berkeley was born in 1685 in Kilkenny, Ireland. He was a brilliant student, deeply interested in philosophy and theology. As he grew older, Berkeley became fascinated by the question of what truly exists. At that time, most people believed in a material world made up of physical objects that existed independently of our perception of them. But Berkeley had a different idea. He wondered, what if things only exist when we perceive them? This question led Berkeley to develop a philosophy known as immaterialism, or subjective idealism. He argued that the physical world we experience is nothing more than a collection of sensations and ideas in our minds. For example, when you see a tree, you are not perceiving a tree that exists independently of you. Instead, the tree exists only in your mind as an idea, a combination of colors, shapes, and textures that you perceive. If no one is there to perceive the tree, does it still exist? According to Berkeley, the answer is no. Berkeley's famous phrase, "to be is to be perceived," sums up this idea. He believed that existence is tied to perception. If something is not being perceived by a mind, whether it's a human mind or the mind of God, then it doesn't exist. This was a revolutionary idea that challenged the prevailing materialist views of his time. But how does Berkeley's philosophy relate to us today? Let's fast forward to the modern world. Imagine a young man named Alex, who spends much of his time online, immersed in virtual reality games and social media. In these digital spaces, Alex interacts with people and experiences places that don't physically exist in the real world. He can visit a fantasy realm in his game, walk through a city that only exists in pixels, and even build relationships with avatars representing people from all over the globe. To Alex, these experiences feel just as real as anything in the physical world. One day, Alex stumbles upon Berkeley's idea that to be is to be perceived. It makes him stop and think. In the virtual worlds he frequents, nothing exists independently of perception. The game's landscapes only come to life when he logs in and perceives them. When he logs out, those worlds cease to exist, at least in his experience. This realization makes Alex question the nature of reality. If these digital worlds feel real but exist only in his mind, what does that say about the physical world? Berkeley's philosophy invites us to reflect on how much of our reality is shaped by our perceptions. In an age where virtual and augmented realities are becoming increasingly common, his ideas feel surprisingly relevant. We're constantly surrounded by images, sounds, and experiences that exist only because we perceive them through our screens and devices. The line between what's real and what's perceived is becoming blurrier every day. Moreover, Berkeley's idea also challenges us to think about our interactions with others. In a way, our relationships are built on perception. How we perceive others and how they perceive us shape our experiences and realities. Social media plays into this as we curate our lives for others to perceive. The version of ourselves that exists online is often different from our true selves, highlighting the idea that to be is to be perceived. Berkeley's philosophy might seem abstract, but it touches on something deeply human, the way we experience the world and each other. His ideas encourage us to question what we take for granted as real, and to recognize the power of perception in shaping our realities. In the end, George Berkeley's radical thought, to be is to be perceived, reminds us that existence is not just about what is out there in the world, but also about what happens in our minds. Our perceptions, thoughts, and experiences create our reality. In a world that's increasingly defined by digital interactions and virtual experiences, Berkeley's philosophy challenges us to reflect on the nature of existence and the role perception plays in our lives. As Alex continues to explore both the physical and virtual worlds, he carries with him the wisdom of Berkeley, understanding that the essence of being is found in perception. Whether it's a tree in a quiet forest or a digital landscape in a game, these things exist for him because he perceives them. And in this perception, the boundary between what is real and what is imagined becomes a little less clear, reminding us all of the profound connection between existence and the mind.